Good thing here.
I know, right? What's up, Power Athlete Nation? Welcome to episode 72 of Power Athlete Radio. It's September 11th. We got a good crowd for you. The coaches are in the house. Kyle Turley's here. We're ready to kick some ass. How's it going, everybody?
You!
Yeah. Before we go, let's
Kids are back in school.
let's take a moment of silence for 9/11. It's a big deal. It's actually the only time the NFL's ever canceled a game. So, and Kyle and I were pretty instrumental in that one. So I think we should have a moment of silence for taking some dollars out of the owners' pockets.
Let's do it.
Okay, that was good. All right, let's move it on. So we have an awesome show today. We're obviously, our coaches and whatnot, but my good friend, longtime friend, and teammate Kyle Turley, and we're stoked to have you on this special day, and also catch up with you, and we get to bullshit about some old times, come up with some good playlists, and just for the most part, just basically talk trash for an hour.
Awesome. It's great to be with y'all, man. I appreciate you having me.
You know, John, I've always wanted to ask you. You put out a Talk to Me, Johnny, about September 11th. And
Yeah.
when I read that, I remember thinking, going back to that whole thing, the NFL canceled those games. Did that mean you guys didn't get a check?
So what happened was it's Tuesday. I think it was Monday morning. I was in the training room in Philly, and all of a sudden, everybody started screaming, and there were, the TV and the deal, and we saw the first plane crash, and they were talking about it. Then all of a sudden, that second plane crashed, and the whole deal went down. And of course, you would think, hey, this is some tragic accident, but we realized it was a terrorist attack in the deal. The players got together and decided that it would be in bad faith and just poor taste for us to go and celebrate and play a game and do this big hoopla in wake of probably the largest attack. I mean, the first attack on U.S. soil. Like, Pearl Harbor, obviously wasn't on U.S. soil. It was in Hawaii, but, this is a major event, and this had never happened, since, 200-some years. And we felt as players that it would be in bad taste for us to play. That there needed to be a week of silence, and the owners and the teams and everything fought us. And even though we practiced that week, we did not play, and as a result, we did not get a game check. So that's when I realized distinctly that they only paid me to practice or play in the games. Practice was the little stuff that we gave them for free. So that was a pretty big deal. And then, obviously, we took that week off. We came back. We played. They ended up tacking that game on to the end of the season, which was kind of hilarious because they were all kind of worthless at that point. But I ended up playing on Monday Night Football in New York, which was the first game in New York after 9/11, and we played on that Monday Night Football in New York. And I remember pulling into the Meadowlands, and it was like, going into Kabul right after they had taken Afghanistan. All the cops are dressed in full battle fatigues, M4s, dogs. These guys had heavy artillery, and as we came in, their practice bubbles where they had been storing the dead bodies and had been pulling people out for ID, and that's where they'd been bringing them. So as we're driving in, you realize that there's this big practice bubble right next to the stadium that's packed with, obviously victims in 9/11. So we went in and played that game, and it was pretty emotional. To see New York and everybody coming and to the aid of New York, and all of a sudden the Giants come running out with this big American flag, and it's a pretty emotional day. And all the jets fly over and the whole deal. So when the NFL wants to come out and stir up America's patriotic deal, they know how to do it. It's jets, it's American flags, and some Monday Night Football. So we ended up going on and winning that game, which was good for us. But it was definitely a pretty hallowing experience in that as we were driving from New Jersey over to the Meadowlands where we were staying, you could see the whole New York skyline, and it's pretty, it was kind of a chilling feeling to not be able to see the Twin Towers and not be able to see the World Trade Center. So, it was pretty amazing to go see it. I remember just driving through and just being like, dude, something's just gone from the skyline. To have something of that magnitude just disappear was pretty chilling. So it was definitely a very interesting event.
Were you John? Were you the first game back, because we were one of the first games back there too, with the Saints, and we flew in, and it was still smoking when we were landing, and it was just everybody's pinned to one side of the plane. The pilot's telling everybody, "We've got to balance this out. Sit back in your seats."
Oh, really?
And as we're landing, we see the smoke and everything over there by the city still coming up, and it was pretty ominous. And then when we got to the hotel, then we find out the hotel we're staying at is the same hotel that the terrorists stayed at the night before. And so we're like, everybody just freaking out. They had what's the guy, the New York singer guy, the old dude,
Frank Sinatra?
No, not Frank Sinatra. The guy that's still alive.
Tom Jones?
No.
Tony Bennett?
Tony Bennett. I knew
Yeah.
we'd come up with it. Tony Bennett sing the national anthem, the whole deal, and all the guard and everything, like you're saying. John was there, and American flags, the whole deal. It was pretty creepy, man, for a while there. But our situation, it wasn't.
Did you get? Was it the Giants or did you play the Jets?
The Giants, yeah.
Man, I you know what? I'll need to go back and look at the games.
You may have played the Jets. We played the Giants.
No, I
Because
remember it was the Jets because I had to play against Keith Hamilton.
There you go. So you played the Jets, and that's it. We played the Giants in the first game back. You played the Jets in the first game back.
No, Hamilton played D tackle for the Giants. Well, you know what? It's been too many years. So I need to go back and take a look. The problem is there's two guys that have obviously taken a lot of severe hits to the head or trying to argue about something that happened 15 years ago. I'm pretty
It may have been when we were with the Chiefs. I don't remember.
Yeah. So when we played for the Chicago Bears, right? Didn't we play next to the Bears?
Yeah, you were in minicamp with me in Miami, right? Yeah. No, but for me it was different. You mentioned the player thing, and the players wanting to honor the day, this and that and the other. There was a lot of players that did want that, but there was a lot of players that didn't want that wanted to play because of the threat from the National Football League that we wouldn't get paid. And so there was a lot of guys that were griping about money and all those other things. In New Orleans, we had a team meeting, and Jim Haslett, our coach, who I'm great friends with, and he's still a great guy, but we butted heads at times. And one of those occasions was 9/11, and we came into the, it was on a player's day off, as you remember, John, and then we came in to have a meeting, and the coaches got everybody in there, all the people, the staff, and everybody from the organization. We had this big, huge, massive meeting. And Jim Haslett, all these rumors were going around before that we were going to take off and go fly somewhere to practice with another team, actually go to Pittsburgh and practice with the Steelers, because Jim Haslett had just come from there coaching with the Steelers. And we were going to practice with them for the week off that we were going to have. And, for me, that was unacceptable. We're going to pick us up, take us away from our families, and we didn't understand what was going on, if there was still a threat there, if any more attacks were going to occur. And here they're talking about going right into the heart of it, back up to Pittsburgh, close by where one of the planes went down. It was unacceptable for me. I had told Jerry Fontenot and a couple of the other guys on the team that were older that were being brought up to a meeting with the coaches to tell them that I'm not going, and that they better not decide to go, because this is ridiculous. We need to stay put, and we need to let this thing, get figured out here first, and some time to settle. And the last thing we need to do is get away and pick up from our families. Let's not think of football right now. And the word came back down that we're going to Pittsburgh still. And so I was irate, and we had this team meeting. And Jim Haslett stands up there and he says, "Now, I know some of you guys are opposed to this, but I'm the coach, and this is the way it's going to be. And we've got to get our work in. We're going to fly up to Pittsburgh, and we're going to practice with the Steelers for the week, and we're going to stay there. Your families will be fine; they'll stay down here." And I just had enough. Right in the middle of him saying that, I just slammed my hands on the table, stood up on top of the desk, and threw a banana right past his ear into the wall behind him that exploded. And I said, I'm not going to Pittsburgh, motherfucker. You're going to Pittsburgh maybe, but I'm not. And I don't know that anybody else in here is. You guys can all go if you want. You guys are bitching about your money. You're bitching about this. Fuck y'all. I'm going to join the Marines. I'm out. And I jumped off the table and ran out of the room and got my stuff in my locker and was heading out of the parking lot. And Jim Haslett and the team let out of the meeting just as I was coming out with my gear, and he confronts me in the hallway and he says, Kyle, what's wrong with you? And I said, fuck you, and I pushed him to the side and kicked the door open and pushed my way through the rest of the team and went out to the parking lot, and he says to me, he says, Kyle, what's wrong with you? He chases me out in the parking lot, says, what is wrong? After all I've done for you, this and that, and I lost it. I turned around because I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. All he did for me didn't make sense. Kicked my ass in practice. You're talking about maybe giving me another contract, which never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. But again, you're distracting from the point at hand. So I turn around and start choking him, of course. And Big Norman Hand, rest his soul, grabs me and picks me up, and Sammy Knight then grabs Jim Haslett and pulls him off away from me. And I go sit in my car for a while, and they tell me to cool down, and they have the security guys and all that there calming me down, and they all go back in and have another meeting with the brass, and we have another team meeting, and they go, okay, we're not going to Pittsburgh now. And it was funny, is all the management, everybody else in the offices, they came up to me later and they said, thank you so much, we didn't want to do that. But the point was that there was so much selfishness going around, from the league down to the players and everything. We lose sight of this day. We take it for granted, and what happened still. We don't hold a vigilant mindset against what is really going on here, and that can be argued. But at the end of the day, it wasn't Americans flying those planes into those buildings, and it's not going to be an American. And if it is, they don't deserve to be Americans if they've joined this jihadi bullshit to attack innocent people. If something else goes down today, we've got a definite threat in this country, and people need to be aware of it.
Well, you know why? It's just easier to pretend that none of this existed and it happened in the past and it wasn't real. But having lived in Philly and having that happen just 80 miles down the road, and then much like you and much like myself, having friends that have gone out and fought and died in that war, and to see these people go out and give this ultimate sacrifice, and to see this happen, and then to see people be like, oh, why are we in this war? This is stupid, and this comes up, and you're like, hey, dude, Americans died. And they were like, oh, this and that, and it's like, man, we pulled out of Iraq, and dude, now that place is even a worse fucking shishole than it was.
Oh yeah,
I mean, dude, you just saw the deal yesterday with Obama talking about ISIS and these, different, Islamic fundamentalist groups and this, and
but they're not Islamic. Remember.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're fundamentalist Islamic. Yeah, Islamists are not violent people, but these groups are. I mean, it's like
extremists.
Yeah, it's like a mincing of words, but and then it's like, oh, and those groups that are going to harm Americans need to have fear, and you're like, okay, great, dude, these dudes are cutting people's heads off on Facebook.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, believe me, they don't have fear of us. And
no, they got no fear. You can't. I just don't understand how you think you're going to defeat somebody who celebrates death. That's not going to happen. The only possible solution to this situation, now that we're getting on this type of stuff, the only possible solution that nobody wants to talk about is exactly what we did to Japan, okay? And that's the end of it. We don't need to be going over there risking any more American lives. I don't care, because you're going to go say you're going to go drop some bombs. We're not going to risk American lives. Well, they got missiles too. We got some planes that could probably get shot down, and I'm sure John McCain can tell you actually, what happens in that scenario. from his Hanoi Hilton days. No American deserves to die for these people anymore. It's been thousands of years past time that they need to stand up and deal with it themselves. Bottom line, let the Israelis deal with it, and let the rest of those people figure it out, because if that's what they care to live under, it's never going to end. This whole stupid ideology, I mean, they're enabled by our government for sure. We're as crooked as the rest, in that we're funding all these different people, but there's just no point or purpose for anybody to ever go over there and lose their life for this bullshit anymore. If they're going to interact and put themselves in this mix, then you just seriously, or you just start breaking out the spaceships and let everybody know what we got, because they're using these conventional weapons that everybody knows about to fight these wars. We've got weapons that are like in the fucking movies, with Iron Man and shit, and everybody knows it. And we could have these people rounded up and annihilated in a second, but we choose to continue this ridiculous perpetual. It's a money machine, is what it is.
Well, and it's also the idea that a democracy in the way that we're living is somehow we imagine that everybody else is entitled to exactly what we have and they want it. So then we have to go out and promote the American way and this idea of democracy and this, and we're going to go out and help these different countries attain this level of democracy. And you're like, dude, these people, this section
they don't care.
Under war. I mean, you can go back to the Crusades. For 3,000 years. These different groups have been warring, and it's like it's part of their culture. Is what they have. Like all of a sudden, they're just not going to like hang it up and go and say, hey, democracy's the way. And it's like but it's also arrogance on our part as Americans, and we feel that everybody should have our way of living and our way is right and this. And you're like, dude, people should be left up to their own decisions. And we go in and try to install these things and end up literally kicking hornets' nests and bringing it up. And all these original problems happen where we go in and we fund Bin Laden and a lot of these guys early on to help fight the Russians. I mean, we were their major funders. We went in there, trained them, we armed them, we grouped them because they were the enemy of our enemy is our ally. And we went in and go work with these groups to fight Russia. Russia pulls out, and next thing you know, we pull out. We don't need them anymore, and now these groups turn on us. And I'm like, we started this.
Well, it's
all over north. Iran.
Of course. It's laughable to think that you could bring democracy to a group of people whose book that they believe in more than anything tells them that democracy is evil. So it's a futile effort. It's the same could be said to you're going to try and go into the Warren Jeffs cult and try to take their kids away and tell them that polygamy is bad. But that hasn't stopped them. The women haven't left. The wives are still there. The kids are still there. They still want to live under that. You can't help people that don't want to be helped, and you can't help people that can't help themselves. At the end of the day, our Civil War wasn't won by the French or England or any other country that interjected into our Civil War. It was won by certain battles of keynote that occurred where the North won against the South, and those individuals were Americans. Granted, albeit fresh off the boat from the northern side, and put into fighting positions to earn their citizenship. Still, they were Americans, and that's what they wanted to be, and they were here fighting for it. Those people got to fight for their own country. We either got to leave them alone or drop the bomb. End of story.
All right, well, let's go to a less of a hot button than this, and let's talk about.
All right. Okay.
No. I mean, let's. My dad actually called. My dad called me at 11 because I told him that you were going to be on the podcast. So my dad, who has always been a big fan of Kyle's and good friends, so he wanted me to say hello to you. But also, my dad is calling me because of this Ray Rice deal. And my dad has a pretty strong dislike for Roger Goodell and the, what I like to refer to as the mob of NFL owners and this complete, power corruption, scandal. So anytime something like this happens, And the Ray Rice thing, we've been talking a little bit about it, but, you know, where people now are calling for Goodell's head because he went in and did the cover-up, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, you guys are thinking that this is the first time that Goodell works for the owners. Guy makes $44 million a year for a reason, so his ability to go in and keep this thing under wraps, and now for the first time, people are you know, calling for Goodell to step down. I'm like, dude, he serves the owners. Believe me, that guy doesn't make a decision without the NFL owners
no doubt
making it for him. I mean, you can go back. I mean, the guy served under Tagliabue, who at the time everybody thought Tagliabue was such a great guy until it came out how he basically kept under wraps, kept under can, dude, hid, did everything he had, intimidated, colluded, everything on the concussion stuff. They knew about all that stuff, and they still didn't keep that information. So Goodell comes from that same cloth. And now here's a situation where, you know, obviously the second time a Baltimore Raven player, I mean, and if you take a look at Art Modell, one of the original gangsters in terms of, you know, one of the the most strong mob-based groups, Art Modell, the Baltimore Ravens, you know, I mean, look at probably the strings they pulled to get Ray out of trouble, and now all of a sudden here's a situation where they have a cover-up with the Ray Rice deal. So I figured you'd have an opinion on that. My dad wanted to know what your opinion was.
Yeah, well, I don't, you know, I think that Goodell's wore out his stay there. I think that you know, the NFL is run by PR. You know that. And the only thing that changes anything in the National Football League is PR.
Well, it's a potential bad image and losing fan base. The minute
exactly.
that they have something negative and they have a fan base, then they have to spring into action.
You've got a situation here where, you know, it's been reported that the number one fan base and the number one merchandise buyers for the National Football League is women. So they've crossed this line big time. This, in my opinion, is no different to the Donald Sterling case. They've got to take extreme action here to show that they care. If they leave Goodell in place, who is the spokesperson, he's the figurehead that everyone is listening to. So if he is the mouthpiece for the owners then are going to have to distance themselves from him. Otherwise, they're going to continue to look like Biscotti did and Ozzie Newsome did, and they can't have that. So I guarantee you right now the discussions are being had in the NFL's PR meetings that the only solution to this problem, because you're going to have, we'll see tonight, but I believe it will be the case, that you will have women's groups left and right at every NFL stadium, moving forward until Goodell is let go. I don't think that he can survive this one. Before everything else dealt with football players, and who gives a shit about us, right? Nobody cares about our brains. Nobody cares about our pain. We got to play in the National Football League and make millions of dollars and blah, 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 and this and that and the other. Nobody gives a shit. But when you cross the line into, other people in the real world, then that becomes your PR mess, because those are the people who have their button on the remote and decide whether or not they're going to watch your show or not, and have their credit cards and whether or not they're going to pay for your merchandise. And that being the case with women being the number one, I believe that the only solution PR-wise to this is that you're going to see Roger Goodell have to step down as the commissioner of the National Football League. It's the only possible way to save face.
Kyle, and Kyle will be able to co-sign on this one because he was there when this happened. People really have no concept of the power of the NFL owners. I mean, the most powerful, richest men in this country are NFL owners. Case in point, we were at training camp, and George W. Bush drove, something like 271 miles out of his way to come over and talk to the Chiefs at training camp and go over and visit his father's good friend and campaign contributor and longtime supporter, which was the owner of the Chiefs, Lamar Hunt. And you remember, Kyle, George W. getting off the bus, and you'd see him walk over, and Mr. Hunt standing there, and he went over and literally shook Mr. His hand like, this is my father's good friend. This man is a very important person to us. And I remember him being like, thank you so much for the president to drive out of his way to come talk to you guys. No, he didn't drive out of his way to come talk to us. He drove out of his way to come pay homage and respect to his father's friend, who is being a major campaign contribution guy. And if you guys ever want to do some fun, Google that. Google Lamar Hunt and the Hunt family and understand about the father, the Wildcatter, and he and his brother and all that stuff. I mean, those guys were, oil. I mean, dude, it's like the movie, the TV show Dynasty was based on the Hunt family. I mean, those guys are, it's like the Kennedys running moonshine. I mean, it's, these guys didn't get where they are by being nice guys. So.
Well, man, football is not their bread and butter. Their football is, like you said, it's oil and it's shipping, trucking industries, all of these other things that have just major corruption attached to them.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Blank. I mean, Blank owns, you got Home Depot, and you look at Bob Kraft. I mean, all of these guys are major money guys, and believe me, those guys don't like bad PR. They don't like the spot shot or the sunlight spotted on them for anything other than their wonderful good deeds. I mean. I think Goodell is they're going to throw him on the sword, and they're going to have to get rid of his ass. And I think if they don't, then they're going to be in a hell of a problem. And, the Ray Rice thing, I think, was handled very, very poorly. I mean, they had information. They did their best to cover it up. It came to light, and now they're going to have to go back and, pay the piper, to say the least.
Well, and hopefully, you never know. I mean, it might lead to evidence being put out there. Because one thing they're doing right now is a big no-no is that they're being caught in their lie. They are now saying that these stories that are out there coming from these law enforcement officials are not true, and that the law enforcement officials are lying. You start making those accusations. Now the dirt's going to come out. Okay, because these people are going to start distancing themselves from you left and right as it falls apart here, because you've crossed a major line that goes outside of your football realm. It goes into the general public. You now interjected yourself into a discussion that is a hot topic in the political scene right now, and there's a lot of elections going on. There's candidates out there trying to gain voters and appeal to the women voters right now, especially because of the war on women that is being projected out there. And in this case, there's no way they're going to be able to run from it, man. I just don't see any other solution to save face in any way possible for them to do anything but get rid of Goodell, because the owners, they're locked in. They're mob guys. They've got direct ties to mob. They've got direct ties to government. They have lobbyists in Washington D.C. They've got so many things. At some point somebody's just going to go to Goodell and say, look, the only solution to this is for you to step down. And I think probably within the next and again, it'll be on the exposure that happens with the games this weekend. But if it happens the way I believe it will, which today and tonight you'll see at who's playing, the Steelers and somebody, you're going to see at that game, if the news organizations are not pressured or give in to the pressure, because I'm sure they're pressured right now to keep their cameras away. But if they don't give in, which I don't think they will, it's past that point now, you're going to see women's organizations boycotting these games, calling for Goodell's head, the whole nine. So if that occurs, which I believe it will, this whole weekend around NFL football games, you'll see it happen next week, where Goodell will probably step down.
Well, and I'll be glad to see him go down, because you know what, like, having become more involved in this concussion thing, I mean, obviously, that whole book, was it the book that came out, Brain Game. I don't know if you read it, Kyle, but I remember my dad, of course, being the wonderful person he is, ends up buying it for me and sending it to me, and this thing shows up in the mail, and that book is not only about us and our friends, I mean, the time at which we played and guys we knew, I mean, good friends, people we drank with, people we played with, and reading that book and seeing that amount of cover-up, I mean, that comes out, the whole deal comes out on TV and nothing. I mean, Tagliabue's name, was all over that deal. Goodell, I mean, that was, and you made a great point earlier. People don't give a shit. A bunch of guys that got paid a lot of money to beat the shit out of themselves. What happens if they have ALS and concussions and different brain injuries and commit suicide? You know what? Those guys are paid handily. But now you have a situation where here's a player who strikes his fiancee, now wife, pretty violently, and they only video they show is him dragging her out of the elevator. They punish him. Then all of a sudden the full thing comes out, and then the cover up. I mean, that's the type of stuff that unravels. I was just amazed that the way that the concussions thing was buried and handled, and the intimidation, the pushing, and all the cover-ups.
Well, I think that rabbit hole goes a lot deeper. I think that rabbit hole goes down to the U.S. government hiding that information as well from soldiers, because at the end of the day, those types of things come down to disability awards, and that then speaks to dollar signs, and that's as well as I do, that's the one thing that they fight for the hardest, is to keep those dollars in their bank accounts.
Look at our deal here in California. I mean, the California Workman's Comp, which was a slam dunk for California residents and players.
Yeah.
I'm involved in that, and it was supposed to be a 6-month deal. I'm in year 5 of this, and I remember
me too.
They write that whole deal to kind of kick out all those players. And I remember when that whole thing was getting done and it got pushed through, the lobbying group that was pushing it, wrote it, got the whole thing done, presented, got it passed. I did some checking, and it turned out that lobbyist group is the most powerful one in California, and the reason that one is the most powerful one in California is because they are the California lobby for the NFL owners.
Of course.
So they have more money to spend, so they pushed that thing through. And literally, I've been to depositions fighting that deal. I mean, we have been actively fighting this thing for almost 5 years.
Oh, I know.
And you're not talking about a lot of players. You're talking about a few thousand guys looking for medical disabilities that should have been given to us in this damn CBA.
Yeah, and we paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars collectively in taxes in the state, where illegal immigrants can receive workers' compensation. And the best one for me was my kid started school this year. He started kindergarten. And one day a week, they want a parent to be in the classroom to help out, staple, cut, this and that. Prior to that, at the parent-teacher meeting at the school, they gave information, and one of the papers it just floored me. It was hilarious as I looked at it, that I could receive workers' compensation for being a teacher's aide in my kid's school. But I couldn't, and having just a person that's volunteering. But if I paid millions of dollars in taxes here from playing a sport, a professional sport, I can't.
Generating revenue for the state.
Yeah, I can't. And people say, well, the states are the ones who end up fronting the bill for that, and it's the furthest thing from the truth.
No,
it's the most absurd statement to ever be made, and they allowed that, and it was a liberal, mind you. There may have been the lobby group that works for the National Football League that pushed this through, but the individual who brought it to be heard, the guy who wrote it, is a fucking liberal, and he should be ousted from his position as a liberal, because that speaks to the Republican Party on the mountaintops.
So let me ask you guys this: how challenging was it to play for the NFL then, knowing all of the bullshit and the corruption that goes on behind the doors that the general public doesn't see? And you can go out there and sacrifice what you did, smash people into the earth, sacrifice your bodies, and still have the passion to want to do that. Because, I'm not an elite athlete, and I can't even fathom what you guys went through, but when I worked for bosses who were assholes, it was hard for me to give it 100%. You know what I mean? And so,
well, it's for the game.
When you go out there and play on Sunday, and the way you're doing this thing, man, I always said, dude, it was the greatest job in the world because I got paid a lot of money to go out and beat wholesale ass. And the best part is I got to go out and do it with my friends. Like, I got to play next to Kyle for an entire year. And, dude, that was one of the most fun I've ever had playing football because I got to play with one of my best friends next to me, and it was fucking hilarious. Like we went out there, I mean, good or bad, we had a great time. And I think that's the reason you go and do it. You go out and you do it for a million different reasons. And it's one of those things where you just assume fucking coaches are going to be fucking assholes, the owners are going to be douchebags. You got to play for a guy like Carl Peterson, who if I saw standing on the street, I'd probably pull over and beat the shit out of him. Definitely spin on him. Or,
yes.
You know, terrorist. No, fuck that guy. He was a fucking slimy bad dude, and he took advantage and preyed on people and used his position of power like they do. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's part of what you're signing up for. And you still go out and you bust your ass because of the competition, the idea that I'm going to go out and play my game, I'm going to play at the highest level, I'm going to go out and do this job, not for Carl Peterson, the owners, or any of this other stuff. You're going to go out and you're going to do it for yourself, you're going to do it for your family, and you're going to do it for the boys you're playing with. And, just one little story that definitely kind of put everything into perspective. After I left Kansas City and I went to New England, after practice one day, I was sitting in the little dining room, and obviously my family got nothing, so I got nowhere to be, so I'm kind of just taking my time. I'm sitting there watching TV, and I remember Mr. Kraft, the owner, walks in, and he kind of looks around. There was like me and a couple rookies, walks around and starts turning off all the televisions. And I was like, man, this is kind of ballsy. The next day I'm sitting there eating, same place, and a bunch of young guys are over there kind of getting fruit, and this kid's got a big bowl of blueberries, and Mr. Kraft walks in, he looks over and he sees all the blueberries are gone, and he's like, and he's like, oh, there's no more blueberries, and the guy's like, oh yeah, I got the last one. Mr. Kraft's like, oh, that's nice. Took the bowl out of his hand and walked away. And I remember, like, this dude not only just turned off a bunch of TVs, I mean, hey, this is I'm paying the power bill, F you, I don't want you watching my TV, and then he went over and punked some young kid for a whole bowl of blueberries.
Blueberry power move.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's just like, dude, there were always things, like, you remember in Kansas City, Kyle, when they closed the weight room on us the last week, and, like, we couldn't lift weights after, you remember, they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing construction, we just turned it off, we figure you guys are okay. Or they made us walk a mile to practice in the snow because they didn't want us to drive down there. I mean, dude, there was like a million things where they were always real good on letting and reminding you exactly where you sat in the organization, which was pretty low.
Well, for them it's about money at the end of the day. For them it's about a business and it's about money. For us it was about the dream. And, for me, it was never about money. I could have been, they said, all you're going to make is $1 for playing this game, then I probably would have still done it. I probably wouldn't have done it for long after some serious injuries, but, I might have walked away earlier than I did. But the dream was what it was about. It was about accomplishing something that only 1,800 individuals in the world get to do every year, and being one of the best. And there's no other feeling like that, from whether it's, what you guys talk about frequently on your show with, you go into the gym and you have more gains and you're finally seeing the payoff of your workout in the mirror or whatever it is. There's no other feeling that can match that because you've put in this hard work and you've seen it pay off. And once you get a taste of that, it is addictive. And the addiction is what drew me back. I played the last 2 years there with Kansas City in under league minimum contracts with splits. And, I never would I have ever done that in my earlier years.
And how crazy is this, Kyle? When you were hurt, and I remember your foot was numb and you were hurt, and I remember being like, what are you going to do? You're like, well, I'm still going to go play. And I'm like, why, what's up? And you were like, well, dude, if I don't play, who the fuck's going to play? What was the other guys? And I remember you should have been like, Kyle's fucked up right now. His back's hurt, his foot's hurt, but you know what? And you're like, dude, I'm not going to leave you out there. I'm not going to fucking let somebody that we know can't go out there and make you look like an asshole. And I remember being like, dude, that's the reason why. Fuck, man.
That's why we did it, man. I mean, it was the brotherhood, it was the dream, and it's the feel. Once you get that taste, man, there's nothing like it. I've tried to search for it, and the only thing that ever has come close to it was towing into 30-foot waves down in Mexico with a buddy of mine and being in the middle of a barrel as big as a house. And it, like I said, came close to it. There's nothing that will equal running out of a tunnel on an NFL Sunday with 80,000 people screaming for you, and the feel on the sideline when you inhale the ammonia cap into your brain and just wake up on every level and slap yourself in the face knowing you're going to go out there and unleash every primal instinct you have inside your body. That's why you got this CrossFit thing. That's why everything blew up like that, because those are the feelings that you get. You have this exhilaration, you have all of these endorphins pushing through your body, and it makes you feel invincible. And then you go back to the real world and you realize you're not, which sucks. But for that moment, when the adrenaline's kicking, I think that, your audience definitely can understand where we come from and why we played this game. Because for me, that's what it was about. It wasn't about money. It was never about that. That was a bonus. That was a lot of fun. But I can tell you, sitting here today, with my wife and kids in my house and no more football and all this and that, I think maybe and all the arthritis pain and all these other surgeries that I got to get lined up here coming up, all the surgeries I'm still recovering from, outside of if it wasn't for the dream, I would have easily just gone to Continental Airlines at LAX and got my job, and I'd probably have a lot better benefits than I do now, and a better pension and retirement, and I'd have probably the same house that I got, and all these other things, and I'd still have my brain. So, but it's sickening to know that these individuals have been in control of this for so long, because, and it's good to see right now, these things being exposed. This is not new. They are stepping very carefully these days, whereas in the past it was overly blatant, from Lyle Alzado being prescribed steroids, and players being given misinformation on injuries. It is. There's a laundry list of things that the NFL should have to be criminally accountable for, and likely never will, unfortunately.
I always think of the North Dallas 40, the beginning of that movie where Nick Nolte's like, what is he, in a bathtub? He's getting out just all like broken down, in pain everywhere. I kind of have this image of you guys who just, especially the linemen, who really just go out there and battle in the trenches. Hold on, honey. Battling right? There's my little one. Yeah. Battling in the trenches every single time, man. I got a hell of a lot of respect for you guys that do that.
Denny, there's probably no more fun in the world than actually lining up with a helmet on that weighs roughly about 7-8 pounds, getting down to three-point stance, coiling up every ounce of your mass and waiting for that ball and anticipating that thing and coming off and ramming your head as hard as you can into somebody. Inflicting it, hitting them, basically doing anything. The things that I did on Sunday, I would be in jail for and been arrested and have criminal charges. And you got to go out and beat people's asses, to watch people quit, grind them down, come back play after play. There's no feeling like that. And it's, and Kyle made a great point. It seems like after that, the volume just gets turned down on everything. You're like, great, I'm going to go lift some weights, and then I'm going to get on my computer and, do this stuff. And you're like, man, at some point, I got to, like you said, man, run out to 100,000 people screaming, yelling, some guy looking across from you, trying to, basically punk you and be like, this is great, dude, you're giving me these hard looks, but in about 3 plays, you're going to be crying because I'm going to hurt you so bad. And we went out, dude, and that was part of our deal, man. We went out, we grind, we hit, we battled, and, dude, there wasn't, Kyle and I were fortunate. We played on, when they traded for me and I came to Kansas City, there was, Willie Roaf, who Kyle played with, Will Shields, and those guys. We played on a great offensive line and with some great players. So, it's, that's the cool stuff. And, you think about Jason Dunn and Tony, and we played with some, Priest Holmes and all these different guys. So, and that was just in Kansas City. And you think about who Kyle played with in New Orleans and also in St. Louis, and where I played in Philadelphia. And it didn't matter the team, didn't matter the colors of the helmet, didn't matter. The ownership was all the same. The coaches were all the same. The only thing that was consistent was the fact that on Sunday you got to go out and you got to do your job. And we were fortunate to do it for a decade. So, I mean, I look back and I think, like, for all the, like you said, for all the injuries and the surgeries and all that, I would almost feel worse if I only got to do it for like 2 or 3 years. I always meet guys like, oh yeah, I played in the league for a year or two, and I'll be like, man, it would be depressing to have been that close to your dream and not got a chance to really like suck the marrow out of it and really like be in the fight and do it day in and day out. So it was it was a great experience, but I mean, and just like everything, you got to pay the piper, you got to pay the
toll. Yeah, it sounds like there's like a really fine line between doing something you're really passionate about, which is essentially using your body as a weapon, and then somehow, like, how do you mitigate that with the fact that you're gonna have like lifelong injuries, I don't know. I mean,
well, nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them,
right?
And then also, I never planned to live this long, so.
But you wouldn't have chosen any other career, even knowing what you know. Well, I mean, Kyle might have.
You got to remember, there was a point where Kyle and I were in Daytona Beach riding on motorcycles, and I'm like, pretty much, if it ended today, we would have been good.
I already have the visual in my mind. I can already see the hair flowing, Kyle's hair flowing,
us doing shots at lollipops.
God, those are the days.
Oh, those are the days. Now we're very
good old days. The good old days.
We're talking about it on the radio. God damn it.
Jolly Green Giants. That's right.
Hang on. I got to rewind to something maybe 10 minutes ago. Kyle, you said you were at Continental Airlines, and you got to be 6'5", 260, 70 pounds.
That was the plan. All my.
And you were going to be you're going to be stewardess?
No, I was going to be throwing luggage, man. My buddies, I grew up surfing. I didn't play football till I was a senior in high school. And my buddies I grew up with, they were a little older than I was, and they all got jobs at Continental Airlines at LAX throwing luggage, full benefits, free air travel. They come back with all these pictures from all these amazing surf spots around the world that they flew to for free. They're getting money, from their job. One of my buddies then ends up getting a full disability from the same fucking injury that I got playing football that they wouldn't honor my disability on. That was the plan. I used to sit. My senior year of high school was actually the worst year that whereas most people it's their best year. They only go half day, this and that and other bullshit. I was going to school full time. I had to go to night school at the junior college just to get eligible to go to San Diego State. So that tells you right there. I was not getting remotely qualified to go to a school like Berkeley, like Smarty Pants. But
Berkeley never liked you. You were
I wasn't going to make it in there academically. But I would tell my counselors every year when I would go sit down with them. What?
You're a smart dude. The problem is you just wanted to surf and fuck around more than you wanted to go to class.
No, I have that personality that doesn't take tests well, or that brain already. So I would do good in class. I just, when it came to tests, I was horrible. I failed the SAT, I think twice before I finally passed it with a 720. They were, but I did have a good memory with other things. So like the Wonderlic situation with the National Football League, when you go to the combine, I practiced for a month. I practiced on this test that my agent had given me. I guess he got a copy of, and so I practiced on this thing for a month. And they give you like 4 different examples of the test, so you couldn't cheat. Well, I ended up getting the exact test that I had been practicing on for a month, which rose my score from when I took it in college to being nearly handicapped to having one of the highest scores on the Wonderlic ever, because my art brain, because I was an art major, visually was able to go, this is the exact same test. I remember where I put these dots on the answers here. Boom, 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 boom. So, that was my situation. I had to work hard to get to college academically because I put myself behind the 8 ball. But it was because I told my counselors every year when you sit down with a high school counselor and set your schedule, what your classes you're going to take, this and that. I told them, I said, you give me the classes, all I need to pass high school. That's all I need, because I'm going to LAX, I'm going to Continental Airlines, I'm getting a job, and I'm going to have benefits, and I'm going to be able to fly around the world and surf wherever I want, and make a good living. And the counselors would just sit there as I'm telling them this story and just look at me, every one of them every year, and just go, like they wanted to tell me, "Fuck you." I can't. You got, but it's because they were all like, "You're the smartest kid in school." And they wanted to, that you're not going to go to college, you're not going to get into debt, you're not going to do all these other things. You're going to go get a job, where you're going to work, you're going to build equity in your income and benefits packages and all these things over the years because you're a big guy. You could throw luggage. You're right. You've already figured it out, And I think some days when I wake up and how bad my body feels, what would be different had I done that? I'd definitely be waking up feeling a lot better, I would think.
I'm still trying to figure out how you stood on top of a table in that meeting on the whole 9/11 day. Dude,
He's pretty fucking agile, dude. He's like a big kid.
I box jumped
Panther.
straight from the
It's
seat.
fucking
Right up.
Dead
Boom.
Poet Society. I'm like, what fucking table was this guy standing
Well, here's the
at,
deal,
man?
too.
Oh, it's a team meeting room.
And let me
Team
preface
auditorium.
this
It
one.
had to have been made out of fucking iron.
Kyle is the only guy in the NFL that could choke the fucking head coach, and they'd be like, "Hey, go to your car and just chill out a little bit." And they came. Now, if I got to choke Andy Reid, and I don't know if I could get my hands around his gullet, I probably would have played myself out of the league. And we totally could have choked Dick Vermeil and just snapped his little head, maybe some tears.
No, the best-
Who was that fucking guy? Latrell.
He would have cried you off.
The basketball guy.
No.
His coach's
Here's where he grabbed PJ with Carlissimo, and that was a big deal. But
that shit.
the thing with Dickie Vermeil is if he had just shed one tear, just one tear, because he would have choked
He
up
cries all the time.
No. He gets acted.
Did you just change your accent when you said Dickie Vermeil?
Dickie Vermeil.
Dickie.
So Dickie would get welled up,
Your accent.
right?
Is
All of a
outrageous.
sudden, he'd get welled up, and we never saw a tear. And I remember he used to get he would get choked up every day in meeting. And at first, it's pretty powerful. You've seen this guy who's won a Super Bowl, pretty famous, beyond famous coach. You're like, dude, this guy's crying. And then after a while, you're like, there's no tears. You never once saw a tear. And I remember after a couple years, I'd be like, man, if he just shed one tear, it would give so much credibility, and I never saw any tears.
Dude, they always show that guy just bawling like a baby. I'm surprised, but
No tears. No
no
tears.
tears for Vermeil. Hey, when you guys, so both of you were in Kansas City and they did the Hard Knocks.
Yes, Kyle and I were on Hard Cocks.
Hard Knocks. Was that fucking accurate?
What was that quote? Kyle and I ate hard cock.
Yeah, so every time they would mic us up, we used to just curse and be like, God damn, I hate this Hard Cocks. And we used to just make a bunch of obscene comments, and then they just stopped miking us up and stopped using any of the film. I remember the producer being like, can you stop saying Hard Cocks? And I'm like, why? Isn't that what it is, Hard Cocks?
Yeah.
And the guy was like,
Did you guys, so you guys obviously thought it was like a bullshit kind of a thing? Or,
well, it was, because we were watching it too, and the storylines they were creating were complete fabrications.
No, don't ruin it for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So they would film something, and then they'd go to the coach's meeting, and they would do a cut-in, or they would show somebody talking or something, and then they'd show a player, and you would naturally assume they're talking about that person when they weren't.
The magic's in the editing.
So what they did is they basically went back and they had to create storylines that were complete bullshit. And I remember being like, this is fucking bullshit. And it's a distraction, So.
Yeah. That was an interesting experience for sure. But I was disappointed.
Just because it's like a training camp thing. Tex, you had a couple questions you wanted to ask him, right? About training camps and what you saw or what he saw.
Yeah, I asked Jared Allen this question, and you played for 10 years, and you kind of got a sense of rookies when they came in. Did you get a sixth sense when a guy came in, he showed up, you're like, this guy's going to make it? Or is it, oh, that guy's a flake, he's going to be gone in a week?
Yeah, that happened pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, the sport of football, you never know anyways. Because you got injury factors that are so high. So, you get individuals that come in that are all that and everything, and then first day in practice they go down. So, but yeah, I mean, if you get a gauge on a guy, player wise, I mean, like Ricky Williams, he was one of the hardest working backs I've ever seen, period. He never said anything. He just went out to practice and just did everything you asked him to do and then some. And you just knew that he was going to be a great player. Fortunately, the NFL chose to make an example of him instead of, realizing there was an issue there and helping him. Instead, they wanted to prescribe him synthetic drugs instead of allowing him to partake of something that should be legal and was legal in America. That's another topic, but you always get a situation when you come into training camp where the competition level raises big time, because you got guys that are fighting for jobs literally. I was in a very good position. John was always in very good positions because we were the biggest, the baddest, the most talented, and we didn't have the threat of losing our job in the first cuts. We pretty much knew if we made it through healthy of training camp, we're going to be on the team. And so you do see the competition rise up, and where I always liked to see it the most was those free agent signings, those guys with the chips on their shoulders, and there was some great talented guys that always came out of that.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing young guys come in and like relatively fairly early. I could get a gauge on a young guy based on just the first few days of practice. I mean, we would do our one-on-one drills, we do pass pro, and to this day, one of my favorite moments was breaking up in training camp for one-on-one pass pro. Because what would happen is the ones would obviously go out there and you go one-on-one, versus their ones or whoever's going to go. And everybody kind of knows how it's going to go. You take 2 reps, and then you step back, and the 2s go in. And then that's when you get to see the fist fights, the battles, because, you have the third-string defensive lineman who's trying to make the cut going against a second-string guard who's trying to be the 6th man on the field. And all of a sudden you would see these just, like, epic battles. And, like, the first one, and then they go do the second one, and it would go good. And then the whole thing would end up in a big brawl. And to me, the biggest one was if a young guy got in the fight, and all of a sudden, he wouldn't take a shot, he wouldn't go back after him, the guy take a late hit on him and he didn't go. If you weren't ready to literally drop everything and, fucking try to like light somebody up or fight on a drop of a hat, then you know what, for me, I was like, this kid's done. And the kids that were, right back at it, that weren't afraid, that were, not only playing their asses off, but were willing to throw a fight and do anything, to me, those are the kids that made it. And I can think of numerous times when we were in drills and practice just trying to, and I know it sounds shitty, just trying to punk kids, just to see if I could do it, just to see if they would come back at me, just to see if they would stand up and man up.
That explains so much.
Well, you should almost do that, though.
It's true. I did it all the time. I mean, I had a pretty good weapon in that I could, a real good timing of my heads and hands on the hits, and I could fucking shock some people. And, I had a big punch, and, like, dude, I could hit some people and would be a fucking asshole to try to see if I could get people to man up and see what they were made of. And if a guy fucking took it or wouldn't push back, then I was like, fuck that guy, he's done. And
John was a collective of the sisters in Shawshank Redemption. He was his own group.
Kyle, what was your move?
Kyle, that's probably the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Oh my God.
I always thought of myself.
You were your own sisters group. No, man.
The problem is you were trying to hang out in the shower for extra long with the sisters.
Grapist.
Yeah, get clean. Get clean.
Kyle was the 2-hour shower guy to make sure he'd see everybody. Hey, what's up? What's up?
Just really into hygiene.
Yeah. Hey,
I like the hot water. No, man.
You probably get asked this, but I mean, I think we got to ask you on the show if you could just name one person who was probably the toughest guy you went up against. Could you name him?
I hate that question.
Yeah,
because lame. I feel like an asshole asking.
You know why?
What's the most memorable?
Everybody. Well, I mean, like, and Kyle probably. I mean, Kyle played against Reggie White, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the thing. We came into the league under, we were in the late 90s when we came in the league there, and so there was a lot of, still to this day, some of the greatest players ever played in the National Football League. That can be argued, size and speed and everything, still to this day. I played against Bruce Smith. I played against Reggie White. I played against Kevin Green. Played against Leon Lett. Played against.
Dude, my first NFL start at guard was against Leon Lett.
One of the biggest individuals ever.
Yeah, they called him the Big Cat. The last play of Bruce Smith's career, I ended up knocking him out. And 2 years later at the Super Bowl, he rolled up on me and we ended up having drinks and he told me the story about it. But I mean, Kyle played against Reggie White. I mean, dude, you think I played against, dude, so did you, Big Ted? I mean, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when Big Ted was 400
Talk
pounds?
to Me Johnny article. That's my favorite article, dude, is your Big Ted one.
Dude, I think it's Big Ted Wade. I'm not kidding you. Like, when we played in that first game, he was 10. What's that?
700 pounds.
No, he was probably 400 plus.
Oh, Jesus.
So he was probably 400 some pounds, and the worst is
at like 6'6".
Yeah, like man hands. Like his hands reminded me of bear paws. But I remember they had the great idea of running a goal line sneak with Donovan. I'm playing left guard in the left A gap. They were going to run it behind me, and who was sitting in the A gap but Big Ted. I'm looking at him and I'm like, this dude's 420 pounds, so I have this great idea. I'm just going to spear him in the knees and see if I can just cut him and at least drive him an inch. So as I dive and spear him,
like a little kid,
I hit him in the knee. He spins around
and falls on you
and sits on my head. And literally his fucking ass was on my side of my helmet, and I saw his butt coming through my face mask. My helmet just crushed. My helmet fucking. And my face mask bent and the helmet pinned on me, and I got this like hysterical feeling, and I knew that if I fucking didn't relax I was going to die. Donovan gets in, and Big Ted sat there for like a good 10 seconds until they pried his fat ass off me, and I got up and I couldn't get my fucking helmet off. So I had to leave it on, and then we got PAT, and they basically had to go unscrew my face mask, get the face mask off, and pop the helmet out. And like to this day, I'm like, dude, Big Ted sat on my fucking head and almost squished it like a pea.
And your helmet smelled like ass.
Dude, he was a massive human being. I mean, dude, Trailer. I mean, dude, like Urlacher, who's Luke has a man crush on him because he had such a cool tribal tattoo.
It's a
Vibar.
Know your armbands. Get your armbands right.
Fuck, I mean, I'm just thinking about like, I mean, Kyle, we could collectively go through.
Oh well, yeah, we had all the new
best
guys.
Players in the NFL.
Yeah, we came in the late '90s with all those guys, all the old guard that were still they're all Hall of Famers now, and then we got all the new kids coming in. Played against Dwight Freeney his rookie year, played against Javon Curse, Sean Merriman, all these guys that started coming up.
Lights out.
John Abraham, and these guys who are now being considered to be Hall of Famers. We played against all those guys, some of the greatest that ever played this game. Ted Washington, there are some guys that do stand out, though, more than others. And I have my own Ted Washington story. I mean, that was the first time I ever had to block him. I was a tackle, and, I never really would see him except on a game or a stunt. And he came around on one when I was down there in New Orleans, and, I wasn't necessarily expecting him. I was just, expect another player, another guy's going to come around, and here comes the color comes in front of my face, and I boom put my hands right in his chest, and my hands are probably as I'm sitting there, everything just went into slow motion because I realized that my hands are probably shoulder width apart in the middle of his on his chest, and my hands are right in the middle of his chest, and they're shoulder width apart for me. His chest was still another 2 to 3 feet wider than my hands were, and his shoulders, etc. I literally sat there and it was in slow motion, and luckily the quarterback got the ball off before he was able to bend down and get his momentum into me and bull rush the shit out of me, because I don't know if I would have been able to stop it. That's how big certain individuals are in the National Football League, where guys like me and John, who are 6'5", et cetera, 6'6", 300 plus pounds, and there's individuals that we could fit inside of. We could wear as a bodysuit.
Like Voltron, like we would stack them and they'd get on top of us. But I mean, dude, and that's what we try to convey to people. Like the NFL, like there's this idea that, hey, I'm going to train. Like the NFL is full of genetic freaks, And like, you know, Kyle, for example, would you run like a 4.87 40 at 300 plus pounds, like one of the fastest 40s?
Sure.
So when I came in the year after Kyle, and I remember like talking to my agent, I remember looking at stuff from the combine, and Kyle was like set the mark for a 6'5", 300-pound weight dude.
Yeah.
Like Kyle was top 10 pick. I mean, you know, all these things. I mean, dude. So I like coming in, I heard the legend of Kyle Turley. And it wasn't until like, you know, 2 years down the road that we became friends that I realized everything was true. And then Kyle and I were, you know, hung out, and then we ended up getting to play together. You know, what sucked is that when Kyle and I got to the point we were playing, he had already like had his back injury. I remember when you got fucked up, and I went and saw you over in St. Louis. And you know, when Kyle came out, we were training in Athletes Performance, and Kyle had this idea of being an actor, and then I sucked you back in, and we started training at Athletes Performance. You put the weight back on, and next thing you know, you were like, "Fuck yeah, let's give it a go again." And you know, and that was Marcellus Wiley and us. Remember, it was Marcellus and Big Bob was training with us.
Yep.
And just, I mean, so it's funny to see, like, you know, guys on TV and this, and like, you know, I saw this whole thing with Ray Lewis the other day, and my wife asked me about it, and I was like, he was a little bitch. I was like, every time I got a chance to hit Ray, I would fucking tee off on his ass. And it was Ray, every hit that you see Ray Lewis makes, it's him running on a running back or him on a receiver. You watch any time when a lineman squared up on him, and rarely you ever got him because he was always playing behind Goose and all these big fucks. But I remember in preseason, they went to a 34 defense, and I got down in my stance, and I looked, and I saw Ray right in front of me, and I was like, motherfucker, this is the first time I've ever had a clear shot at this dude. And we ended up running like a little 95 inside zone. I took a zone step, and he tried to step up, and I fucking tea-kettled him, and he went fucking crazy. Next thing you know, they didn't run the 34 anymore, and he was still playing in that shade defense where he was, you know, hiding behind the big one technique or the three. And, you know, I'm sitting there watching him. My wife kind of laughed, and she's like, you know, collectively now that Ray's retired and all that. And I'm like, first of all, nobody liked his fucking dancing. Even his fucking teammates hated that dancing shit. I had to play at Baltimore and see that outrageous bullshit and be like, what the fuck? And they fucking loved it. And I'm like, you know what? My wife laughs. She's like, you know, probably the only person in America that could say that. I'm like, no, Kyle could probably say that, and fucking every other guy I played with could say that.
Oh yeah, every other lineman that played against him knows that he didn't really get famous until he was involved in a double murder. Nobody really knew who Ray Lewis was until that occurred. You know, he was a good player, but he wasn't on anybody's radar as being some fantastic, you know, over fantastic player. He was, you know, very blockable, wasn't a threat, never considered a threat. And after all that occurred, I mean, towards the end of my career, I was like, what the fuck? How did this guy just get so? And it was because
it wasn't like he was a Junior Seau. And
no, not at all. Not at all.
He was. Danny, you want to ask us who the
he was a poor man's Junior Seau. That's for sure.
People always ask me like, oh, who'd you play against? Warren Sapp. I'm like, no, he was a fat fuck. You know, you can go through all this stuff, but I'm like, Junior Seau was hands down. He had a speed on the field that no other player had. I watched that dude run sideline to sideline faster. Like, it was unbelievable. I remember coming out to block him on an outside zone, and I had a great angle on him. And that dude literally ran past me like I was a kid. He was strong. He was fast. He was agile. You couldn't put him down. He was like a big cat. I'm like, and on top of it, off the field, that dude drank me under the table for 5 straight nights.
Hey,
well,
he was your welcome to the NFL moment, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, both on and off the field. I remember being you know, basically a young guy, and I remember, you know, coming in that first, you know, I got hurt my first game, and then sat on IR, came back that second year and started. That first start was against Leon Lett, and I played real well against him, pitched a shutout. And then I remember we went and played, and it was John Perella, who was a monster of a human being. The story goes that wherever Perella went, he brought his 200-pound dumbbells with him.
Yeah.
He used to do his dumbbell bench with, so he traveled with his own dumbbells because no team had 200s. So I had to play against this big, strong motherfucker named John Perella and Junior. And I'm playing left guard, and I'm, you know, pretty young kid, 23 years old, and I'm out there. And I remember Junior just literally running around the field, making calls, screaming. I mean, they designed that defense with 10 guys had assignments. Junior Seau had no assignment. He could blitz, he could drop, he could do it, everything. He was literally, the comment was made that his position was the straw. He was the straw that stirs the drink, and that was it. And I remember after that game, like, Junior tapped me on the head, and he's like, man, he's like, I got to get you while you're young, because it's not going to be like this. And I remember Perella coming over and putting his arm around me and being like, hey man, he's like, first of all, he's like, I love to see a young great white player coming up. There's not too many of us. and the other one, he's like, you played great. He's like, just keep working. And he's like, dude, with the performance you put in, you got a good future. And I remember like getting like that nod from Perella and also from Junior was like worlds, because dude, I grew up watching these guys. I mean, these guys like Junior Seau, are you fucking kidding? And
he's fucking awesome.
and then when I went to the Pro Bowl, I got invited out there, and Junior fucking saw me ponied up, and literally, man, I remember the guy drinking me to the table, and then 2 hours later, as I'm on the deck of my hotel room throwing up, I look out and I see him running down the beach. So
it's Junior, man.
Yeah, guy was fucking savage.
Do you have a welcome to the NFL moment? It's kind of a stupid question, but I mean, I'm sure you have one.
Welcome to the NFL. Yeah, I don't know, man. I played really pissed off. So for me,
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, and I mean, it was Slayer. This one kid from Michigan. I get kids every now and then play ball still, and they hit me up on Twitter, and I'll always get back to them, especially if they're linemen. And one kid, leading up to the season this year, he said, he asked me, he was a lineman from Michigan, and he, season's about to start, you got any advice? And I just said, Slayer, 4 ammonia caps in a cup, cover it with a towel, shake it up, and inhale, and go out and have some fucking fun, killing people. That was what it was for me. It was just getting in that state of rage. So my induction into the NFL, I played against some great players right out the gate. I mean, my first game was against Reggie White in the preseason up in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So there was no for me. I grew up. I was a wrestler. I didn't play football till I was a senior, but I was a wrestler, and so for me it was I got to get my mind right, and I was just pacing the sidelines and just getting fired up, and luckily I didn't have a play where it was just me and him one-on-one on a pass rush situation before he got pulled out, because it was a preseason game, but then in the first games of the season, I had to go against guys, Warren Sapp, all those. They put me at guard my rookie year, and my induction in the NFL was just playing for the Saints in general. Welcome to the NFL, because I started at guard my rookie year, at left guard. I started at right tackle for 4 games, and then I had to play at left tackle when Willie Roaf got hurt for 2 games. It was a trial by fire for me, for sure. Nobody really bested me, I don't think, I can't remember, too well anybody getting I gave up probably some sacks here or there, but it wasn't because of anybody just trucking me and manhandling me, but it was the whole scenario. I mean, I guess if you want to welcome to the NFL, it was how fucked up it was back then. I mean, we had the gauntlet, and in training camp, at the end of it, the last night that we spent in the dorms, in the middle of the night, by tradition, all the veterans come up to the rookie floor, line the hallway, which is an old hallway at an old university, University of Wisconsin La Crosse, and line that old dormitory hallway, so there was obviously no room between individuals standing on either side, and put a pillowcase over our heads, and we had to run through it while all those veterans got to take their shot at us. And that was, for me, it was exhilarating, because I thought it was bullshit, but here it is. Okay, fine, you guys want to play this. I grew up in the punk rock fucking heavy metal scene. I'm going through a mosh pit, fuck y'all, and started just whirling around like a Tasmanian devil, and I probably took about 4 guys out myself, but we had other guys in that situation.
In Cleveland.
Oh, Cam Cleland got smashed in the eye by some fucking asshole.
Some guy filled up a sock full of pens.
Andre Royal.
Yeah, lit him up, and he was fucked up. And then did that other guy go through a plate glass window?
Oh, yeah. If they didn't have the crossbar at the because the rookies were on the top floor. There's no elevators. So the rookies were on the top floor, and they had, at the end of the hallway, a big plate glass window. And luckily, there was a wood, like 2x4, basically a crossbar bolted across at about waist high because we had this defensive lineman who ended up settling with the team, getting a nice settlement. He wasn't even going to make the team, so he made out pretty good. Defensive lineman from Syracuse, and he, is drunk as hell, and he runs through the line and keeps running, and he ran straight through that plate glass window, and luckily that bar was there. Otherwise, he would have went out a 3-story balcony down to the concrete. But the glass broke. It cut him all over. I think he ended up with, I don't know how many stitches all over his body from massive cuts. There was blood everywhere. It looked like a murder scene. The police were called. The ambulances were there. The whole nine. I mean, stuff you barely heard a glitch about it back when it occurred. They made just a brief mention of it, and that pretty much was the end of rookie hazing in the National Football League as it was, because that happened. So that was my welcome to the NFL, because they completely brushed that under the rug. It was, out of sight, out of mind the next day.
Shit, dude, when I came in that rookie year, they basically cut all the old guys in front of us. So, I mean, it was all a bunch of team and young guys. So, I mean, like, I remember looking around and being like, where'd all those old guys go? And it was fucking me and Brzezinski. And, like, it was, just a bad deal. But, no, man, it's, fuck, dude. No, like we always joked about, the guys have seen, what was it, Full Metal Jacket, where the guy's like, we're like Jolly Green Giants walking through the earth with guns.
That's right.
And that's kind of the analogy we always use. We're like Jolly Green Giants, so it was a great time. And, I look at, like, the NFL that we played in, and that kind of end of the 90s, early, kind of deal. I really look at, like, the kind of the ascension, the highest point in the NFL, and all this other shit is since then. I mean, that was when actually we had to practice in pads. Now I think they have, 6 padded practices. I mean, we did fucking double days at Andy Reid. I mean, I had 42 days of training camp, Dick Vermeil's 3-hour marathon sessions, all this shit. I mean, I look at the schedule now, and I'm like, dude, if we were playing during this schedule, we would have lasted 20 years.
Yeah, that's what infuriates me the most, when these young guys, that kid in Atlanta, there's still there's certain people that criticize the retired players when these things come up about lawsuits and this and that, and everybody that believes whoever they're hearing their information from, that these guys are just a bunch of guys griping over spilled milk here. And the reality is that a great price was paid so that these fucking pansy asses today can have their practice schedules. And I want my son, and that's why I was such an advocate for all these things, because if my son chooses to play football, which I hope he doesn't, but if he does, then I want him to have a better league, and I want all these other kids to have a better league. And it just that's what pisses me off the most, when these guys still don't support the retired player efforts. But I know it's under a lot of continual bullshit fed down to them through our union and other individuals on the executive committee and these teams that still exist, because there's a great price that was paid, man. And had we not paid that price, and had the guys not stood up for fighting against this, we didn't go through it willingly. We went through it forcibly. We had to live that dream. And if we didn't, then we weren't going to live it. We weren't going to be in there anymore. And, you can't fault any of us for pushing ourselves in a situation that we had no other recourse in. The injuries were had. My career, you'd probably still be playing. I'd probably still be playing. Had we been under these new rules and these new practice schedules, our bodies would still be fine. In 10 years' time, we put what these kids are going to put today, double the wear and tear on our bodies that they are. Hopefully
I played on Veterans Stadium, dude. Which
Yeah.
was
Hey, well,
like,
shit.
dude,
You and I both. Veterans Stadium, New Orleans. Then my sixth year into the league in 2003, we were still on AstroTurf in St. Louis. It was fucking ridiculous. I still have scars all over my body from that shit.
Me
Did
too.
that shit? Did they come up with AstroTurf just so fucking the running backs or the wide receivers can run quicker?
That and money.
that's-
That and money. It was
Yeah,
financially.
spend any money on lawn care.
Because they were too cheap to put some fucking turf down?
Well,
Yeah.
It's because at the time the technology I don't think necessarily existed where they could grow grass indoors, and the teams were cheap. I mean, dude, if you would have seen we played on a Veterans Stadium, imagine like the blacktop outside of your door and just covering that with a putting green and then painting lines on it and being like, go.
It's like a cheap mini golf course.
I remember. Dude, Luke can look at it right now. I got this 7-inch scar that goes on my left knee that almost ended my career, where I ruptured my patellar tendon because my foot got stuck in a seam on the very first game as the defensive end hit me on pass pro. And I remember as he hit me, I took a step back with like my right foot and went to plant, and I couldn't get my left foot out. And as I leaned forward, my tendon ruptured. And like, dude, on film, it's like all of a sudden, like my foot just got stuck in the seam, and there was about a 2-inch seam that my foot got wedged in. And
Mine was the Senior Bowl in 98, the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama, and it was a storm that came in and raining too bad outside, so we couldn't go practice on the fields on the grass. So they bust in. They got a trucking company to haul in AstroTurf. They cleared out the parking structure underneath the hotel. They made the cars all get out, and they laid down turf, no padding, just the AstroTurf, down on the concrete so we could practice. And it was, guys were trying to run routes. I mean, there was concrete pilings that they were running into in the parking structure. The turf was slipping and sliding during one-on-one pass rush, and some guys got hurt, and I don't know how bad, but I mean, it was just unbelievable, man, this AstroTurf fucking era that we had, and what they were able to get away with, because the technology was there. You know, the NFL, they always like to say, like, oh, we just found out, just like in the Ray Rice situation here. We just found this out. Bullshit. They have people out there searching, companies going after them left and right with new products all the time. And you can guarantee that synthetic turf was on the scene probably when, in the late 90s when it was created. They just didn't have enough money to pay the NFL to advertise it for them.
Or another one I tell people about is I played in the hottest game in NFL history. That was 160 some degrees on the center, September 1, Dallas, noon. And the game was so hot they came in and they were like, if you get hurt, don't lay on the turf because your core temperature will go up and you'll die. And I remember like them coming out and they're like, yeah, they took a temperature reading. It was like 163 or 167 degrees on the center at the Star. And I remember being like, okay. And I remember like that us going out there and people were like, are they going to cancel the game? And I'm like, and the old guys were like, fuck no. Let me tell you, somebody could die out here today and they won't cancel this shit. Sure enough, we went out and played that game. I mean, it's like, people in the stands were getting fucking evac out because they were having, such bad problems. So, I mean, dude, like, we're just, as NFL players, you learn fairly quickly that you're just this little pawn that can get kind of moved around and you kind of do it the coach's whim and, the owners and all this stuff. And if you're a good little boy, you get rewarded. And, if you voice your opinion or you call something out, then you get fucking blackballed. Next thing you know, you don't get to play the game anymore. And there'll be 100 other kids right behind you that are looking to fucking get right in there. So, I mean, the NFL's got the greatest deal in the world. They got people fighting to get into that game and no care about the players that are there, presently there, and how it got there.
Yeah.
That's a sad deal.
Well, and that's why I've been on my crusade, if you will, and hopefully there'll be other young players that see that as well still, and the hypocrisy that the stuff that's going on. But again, it was the dream for us, man. It wasn't about any of that, and that's why we we're culpable in it, because we had that lust, man, for that dream and for that feeling. It was addicting, very addicting. I still wake up to this day every morning, no matter how bad my body feels. People go to the gym. I don't go to the gym. I go to my rehab room, and my rehab room is what most people consider a gym, but unfortunately for me, it's just to get my body to a level where I can move the rest of the day and pick things up and walk and not have extreme pain. Otherwise, if I sit around, my body atrophies to near nothing because all the nerve damage. So but still, even through all of that, every morning I wake up, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think I could go back. I have to remind myself it quickly happens, but there's still a thought every day that when I at some point I'll feel great during the day, whether it be for 5 or 10 minutes, and I just go, I'm going to make a comeback. It's that addicting, man, and it's the greatest sport I think ever created. Unfortunately, there's too many assholes that fucking run it.
No, dude, I still see that. I watched the Green Bay game the other day, and I was watching that left tackle and that right tackle just get their asses handed to them, especially that right tackle. I watched him step in the bucket, crossover, and I'm sitting there. He was fucking bad, and I remember
it was way bad.
As I'm sitting there with my 3-year-old daughters watching the game, as they're sitting there and they like to watch the football, and I was like, "Your dad never got his ass beat like that."
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, right. I'm like, you know what? I was like, that kid couldn't have carried my fucking pads off the field. And I was like, you know what? Set back, keep your shoulders squared, don't step in the bucket, keep your toes going forward, fucking bend your knees. And you know what? Like, nobody's a fucking knee bender anymore. It drives me fucking crazy. Everybody plays so high. And I'm thinking, it's the first game of the year, they haven't got it in it, but these tackles are playing so high. And I'm thinking,
it's because of coaches, man. They keep hiring coaches.
And
coaches
you know what?
that never played.
And the kid got annihilated, and I'm like watching it. And it wasn't for effort. It wasn't because of something physical. The kid had no fucking technique, didn't know how to use his hands, didn't know how to bend his knees, didn't understand, play 2/3 angles, use this. I mean, fucking stay between your man and the quarterback. I mean, understood nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck? And at that point, like, in my mind, I'm like, there's no doubt I could go out. If that guy's starting, I could go out and fucking start over every one of those people today.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that you and I couldn't go back and start immediately for one of these teams. It's just the longevity factor. I'd last maybe a game. That'd be one game and I'd be done. I'd just be like, I'm out of here.
God, it'd be so good. I haven't seen anybody in anger in so long.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Dude, it'd be one of those things. I'd go out there and they'd be like, I don't know what's going on. This dude just keeps fucking hitting people, like walking away from the huddle just to sock people. I just need one day just to soak it all out of me, but it was tough. So frustrating to watch the technique and like just watch these young guys. I'm like, God damn it! And the only thing I could think of, and this is right or wrong, but the way you figure out as an offensive lineman, the way you learn your craft, the way you put in your hours, the way you learn your skill and your craft, is by you do it in practice. You go to practice, you watch the film, you see what you're doing on film, you go back, you make corrections as you win or lose, and by the time you get to that first game, you have 1,000 hits in you. You've done your set 1,000,000 times. You know exactly what you're going to do. You've watched enough film. To me, what it looked like is that these kids, especially that right tackle from Green Bay, he hadn't done it enough. He had not enough reps. Like when shit, and you know that, you guys know this. Nobody ever rises to the level of their training or rises to the occasion. They fall to the level of their training. So all of a sudden, you're out there, season opener, big game. Fucking 100,000 people, big, everybody's screaming, yelling. You're in Seattle, Super Bowl champs, and all of a sudden you are going to fall to what you know. Water's going to find its level, and that, I'll tell you, when he fell to level his training wasn't good enough, and next thing you know, he's fucking stepping with his inside foot, he's fucking standing up straight, moving his shoulders, stepping in the bucket, doing all these things that they coach you to not do, and because he didn't have attention to detail. And what's so frustrating for me is, by changing these practice schedules, by reducing the volume and hitting and all this, it takes a player as an individual to realize, oh, fuck, by them cutting my practice time, by them cutting my reps, I don't have enough chances to to learn my craft, so I'm going to have to put in extra work somewhere else just to work those sets, to work head and hands and practice punch and slide and all the stupid drills that we did religiously, that to this day I still find myself stepping backwards and working on my kick set, and occasionally when Luke's, being a little bitch, I'll give him a two-hand shot to the chest, which, a lot of people love. And but it's just part of the deal, man. And I think
it's coaching too, man. These coaches.
It is coaching.
These coaches are not emphasizing, because there's too many coaches that didn't play the game, that are coaching, and they don't know, and they don't know what to tell these kids. And I mean, I've been helping out my cousin coach a little high school team here out in the valley, and these coaches have no idea to coach around these new rules, and it's simply because, in my opinion, of them being so ingrained in that old school mentality, that it continues to be frustrating for them. They can't get over, how do you coach tackling? Well, you coach it like you always have. You coach it, because we don't know how to tackle anybody anymore. All these new rules, this and that. I mean, I heard the San Diego State coach at a thing I went to say the same thing, and I'm just like, what? These are excuses. You guys, football's not changed. It just got bastardized for a while. There needs to be some better coaching, in my opinion. And that coaching comes from guys like you, guys like me, who played this thing. But they don't want guys like you. They don't want guys like me. They want, these coaches like Matsko, who are going to do whatever they say, whenever they say. And, that was the Kansas City was the worst offensive line I was ever on, and that was the reason. Because you never had a coach that stood up for his players, to the management, that never took a stand to say, no, these guys are staying in here no matter how bad the game looked to you guys. We need to build continuity here. I mean, you were there. You remembered when they had no control in the O-line room, and Carl Peterson's the one who's making decisions, on who's going to play O-line or not that week. And Mike Solari up in the booth, and they're just scrambling for straws because they're calling bad plays, and they got all their other people that are fucking the system up, and they want to blame it on certain individuals. They start mixing the lineups, and everything gets fucked. They don't allow enough coaches like me or you guys that played the game to be in it any longer. They've found that to be, as it appears, to be a hindrance to the NFL.
I don't think I could go back and coach and fucking deal with that shit. I don't think I could go into a situation and not put the best players, the best people at the situation out there with the, armed with the most knowledge, the most information, and, not teach the silly bullshit. And Kyle, you and I saw that. I mean, I remember my rookie year, Juan Castillo showing me offensive line stuff of this guy, and I remember finally saying to him, like, do you have any, 6'5", 300-pound weight dudes that you want to show me? And I'm like, dude, you're showing me these dudes that are 6'8", 375-pound black dudes. I'm not that guy. And he ended up pulling out Jim Lachey and all these Zimmerman and all these cats. And I was like, okay, that's like me. I'm gonna play like that. And I was like, yo, man, I'm gonna vertical set. I'm gonna use my head and hands. I'm just not gonna fucking be a big ship in the harbor that somebody runs into. And I'm like, yo, man, I need to know this stuff. And I think that was really the first time Juan had ever heard that. He's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, well, yeah. Fuck. And then I remember he wanted me to do all this stuff, and I remember going in and being like, well, that shit ain't going to work for me. And I remember developing my own technique, and he's like, well, and this, and then 6 months later he's having me fucking film clinic film so that he can go and show high school and college coaches and show clinic tape of how they play now. And I'm like, dude, you're showing clinic tape on me fucking short setting at a guard, punching, doing all this, setting vertical on a wide 3 technique and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you wanted us to jump set everything, which was that Green Bay shit. I'm like, well, yeah, you had Brett Favre with the quickest release. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to jump set people with Donovan who wants to hold this shit.
Yeah, right.
And I think, that's a situation where, either, I realized young that I was going to have to, I needed to coach. I needed to perform with what the coach wanted me to do, but at the end of the day, man, results fucking pay. And I think what's frustrating for a lot of these guys is that, you know, they don't have an O-line coach, or they don't have somebody in there that's like, you know, that's fucking bullshit. You know what, that doesn't work. More importantly, I played this game, and dude, that's fucking silly. But that's clinic bullshit that you're trying to make it up in the fucking meeting room, you know?
Oh, yeah. I think one of the greatest things I ever had coming into the league as a rookie was a coach that his philosophy was do whatever it takes. You're in the National Football League now. You have to do whatever it takes. I'm not going to sit here and emphasize, because when I went to St. Louis, they tried to get me to do all these, like you're talking about, they tried to get me to emulate Jackie Slater's set. And I was like, I'm not Jackie Slater. I don't know why you guys brought me here, but I'm pretty sure you brought me here for who I was down in New Orleans. So I'm not going to change who I am. I'm going to keep getting better at what I do. And in New Orleans, I mean, my first coach my rookie year was Dick Stanfel, played in the NFL before it was called the NFL, and was still to this day the only lineman to ever receive the MVP award for the All-Star game, which was the Pro Bowl back then. And his whole philosophy was just do whatever it takes. I don't care what you have to do. If you got to bite the guy, he was funny. He had this old school accent from he thought he was from Brooklyn or something, and he was from San Francisco. And he's like, I don't care whatever it takes. You bite the guy in the balls. You do whatever it takes. You chop his teeth out. You punch him in the eyeballs. You do whatever it takes. I don't care. You know, and we'd just be sitting in a meeting, and as a rookie, I was just like, at first I was like, damn, I was hoping to get some better coaching, but then I was like, you know what? This probably is the right thing to do after I got into some action, because the game is too fast to sit there and try to say one technique does one thing better than another. And my next coach after that, he was horrible. He was like Matsko. And then my next coach never played, was the only coach I ever had who never played that coached us, and he had coached O-line for a long, long time, Jack Henry, and was one of the greatest coaches still, second to Ed White, that I had, and it was because he really stepped back to understand the position, to understand what it took to play that position. You know, and too many coaches these days are so into the immediate, like we saw there in Kansas City. If it's not working immediately, then we've got to change it, and you just can't do that. You know, you got to let certain individuals settle in.
We also didn't have a threat of a quarterback, and Larry Johnson, the minute they fucking paid him his money, he didn't want to run the ball anymore.
Yeah.
So
they were
all of a sudden, like, they're like, oh, you know, the offensive line needs to pick it up. I'm like, dude, we don't have a quarterback that can connect the pass, so there's no fear of a passing game, and we have a running back who, the minute he bought his Maybach, doesn't want to fucking run anymore.
Yeah, that was our fault. Shitty.
I'm like, dude, and they were fucking riding us, and like, you know, you guys need to pick it up and this. And I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? There's fucking, 13 guys on the front line. They're bringing extra people in to stand on the fucking line of scrimmage. And then, and Larry doesn't want to run the ball. So I'm like, I even told Herm Edwards when he called me in, he's like, wanted to check your temperature. And I was like, dude, you pay Larry Johnson, he'll never run a fucking day for you. He's like, yeah, well, that really ain't my decision. And I was like, well, it better be your decision, because you're going to pay that dude a lot of money, and he's never going to run again. Sure enough, they paid him his money, and that dude fucking cashed it and never ran the ball again.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's where the analogy of the mushroom group came into play there with the offensive line.
Yeah. Put him in the dark and feed him shit and let him grow.
That's right. Yep.
So, all right, dude, we're about $1.45 on this one. I mean,
yeah, man. I got a little
awesome. Hey, but, did we get Kyle's music choices on air?
No. I guess before we go, you made a comment earlier how you like to play angry, and I guess going back to those days, and we talked earlier about those albums, Kyle. What would your mix be? I mean, if you had an hour, 90 minutes to train, what are you gonna be listening to?
Slayer.
Just Slayer. What particular album?
Slayer.
Just Slayer, dude. Just put on Slayer.
I mean, say, right?
my personal my pregame was Seasons in the Abyss, but any Slayer will do. Any Pantera will do. Yeah. Slayer was my
vulgar display of power, dude.
Well, I remember
I remember driving to work. Kyle would come pick me up so that he could self-medicate while I drove, and we would listen to Vulgar Display of Power fucking walk to fucking work at like 6 o'clock in the morning, fucking speeding to Kansas City. And Kyle would pick me up. He'd be like, "You drive, fucker," and we would roll. And,
yeah, man. Hey, that was how you had to do it in my mind, and to play in a violent sport like that or to get fired up. I'm a little different nowadays. I put Johnny Cash on my Pandora, and that's what I listen to when I work out now. For me, going out when I still need to go get pumped up to. There's Big Surf or anything like that. I still go back to the Slayer a little bit, but back in the day, man, when we were running hot, there was nothing better than putting my headphones on and zoning out, completely blocking out the coach and what the fuck he had to say, because it never mattered. In those pregame speeches, that's why they always talk about what was your motivation, which coaches inspired you the most, and I was like, Coach, no, man, Slayer. Put some Slayer on. Think about what it is you're about to go do, and if that doesn't light you up, then you're in the wrong business.
That's awesome. So before we kind of just wrap the show up, now your post NFL career, you've put out some songs with your band. One of the great songs, "Fortune and Pain," you got "Free." Not so much Slayer. More. How would you define your music?
Well, like I said, Johnny Cash, what I listen to now, and that's those are my that's the happy medium. From Bob Marley to Johnny Cash, the music that'll calm you down and settle you. Versus, it's the whole yin and yang thing, man. You got to have balance. You got to have balance in your life, and that's what it was. People say, "Well, 2 albums are you going to take on a deserted island with you, or whatever?" Are you talking about music? Is I guess as far as artists go, it's Slayer, it's Pantera, and then it's Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and Bob Marley and all these others that I grew up listening to. I mean, I grew up in such a wider range of music. I was never particular to one thing, and I grew up playing instruments and things and being around bands, and so when I came to do my own thing, it was what do you want to do here? And I've got other projects. I've got a doom metal band called Delta Doom, and we toured with Crowbar and others, and but my country project is it's more of a rock country thing, and but I sat down with my guitar to write some songs because I needed to get a lot of things off my chest, and that's what came out. I got with some buddies of mine that were in Nashville that were producing records, and got in the studio and put some musicians around it, but guided the whole thing off of my emotions at the time. And you can see, I mean, I've got that's my second full-length record that I have out, Skull Shaker, and then my first one was Anger Management, and that's what it's been for me. And unfortunately, although, like I said, I have my side projects where I still dabble in metal a bit. I'm getting older, man, and that's what happens to you. You chill out, you mellow a little bit, you think about life a bit more, and loud, super loud music is not as easy to play or be around anymore as well.
Right. Do you think
we're getting old?
Yeah, we're getting old.
Kind of like the same gratification or satisfaction, saying like playing in front of a crowd, on a stage, as you did maybe in the NFL?
Yeah, a little bit. Not fully, obviously.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't been back to the stadium yet, and everybody's chanting my name. I've played big arena shows. I got to open up for Leonard Skinner at a big arena show once, and and play in front of about 10,000 or something like that, you know, and it was quite an experience, you know, in the music scene to be able to do that. But you know, once you've run out of that tunnel with 80,000 people screaming your name, you know, and I've had that, you know, I've had those fans in New Orleans are quite rabid. In my heyday, I had the entire stadium chanting Turley, and that, you know, that was pretty damn cool. And you know, I don't think, and especially what I went out there to do, and the whole primal nature of it, it made it that much better. You know, I mean, I can imagine that going out to a crowd, being on stage and singing some music would be a great feeling, and you know, you have an amazing feeling. These 80,000 people are there for you, but you're still not getting down to the three-point stance ready to come off the ball and fuck somebody up, you know.
Amen. Amen.
Wow. Hey, Cal, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, you bet, man. You bet. I appreciate you guys having me, man. Big fan, and you know, keep spreading the good word.
All right, amigo. I'll see you soon.
Love you, brother. Be well. All right, guys.